Hey everyone, I've got Bill Connors here from Eastern Hills Baptist Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Bill, thanks for being here today.
You bet.
And what I asked Bill if he'd come on and talk to me because he's a senior pastor, and his worship team just got involved with our coaching program, and it's a very kind of unique situation because
Right.
they don't have a quote unquote leader, and so they're sharing the leadership. And so Bill, just to give other leaders an idea, maybe a little bit about your church, would love to hear just a bit of the history, what led up to this, and then just a little bit about you and in your team there.
Sure, that'd be great. So Eastern Hills is a little bit of a, I guess you could say it's an older church. I mean, the church has been around since 1964, so we've been around a long time. Went through the worship wars of the 90s and all of that. And at that point, I actually was kind of the contemporary service worship leader. We started a contemporary service and a traditional service, two separate kind of deals. I was the worship leader of our praise band for the contemporary service. Started that band with what had formerly been the youth praise band kind of thing, and so that we started in 90. I want to say 97.
Oh.
So 25 years ago, I guess now. And so we did that for a while. The band got better and better. That service grew. And we're kind of a medium-sized church, in the 300, 350 range as far as on Sunday mornings. And I eventually had to step down from leading that team because I was also the youth pastor and was wearing a lot of hats and was in school and all kinds of stuff. And two of the charter members, the bass player and the keyboardist, they had stayed. And since then, it's gone through different iterations. And we had a worship pastor who was on the team, but it wasn't his forte. He loved the hymns and kind of that older style of music. Not that the hymns are necessarily old or bad, but it didn't fit with our service as much. And he just wasn't comfortable leading a band or managing a band or those kinds of things. And he muddled through doing the best he could. And then he retired. So at the end of last year, he retired, and we had to make a decision. What are we going to do? Do we want to look for another worship leader? Do we want to hire a worship leader from within? Do we, what do we want to do as far as this is concerned? And going to the praise band themselves, they said, well, we'd kind of like to try to just sort of run this as a group and not have someone be the one person in charge where the buck stops. But the thing that we're going to need is someone to help us musically who knows praise bands, knows how to lead a band to grow. And the bass player actually owns his own business, and he has had a lot of success in working with a business coach. And so we said, what if we try finding a coach or a mentor or something like that to kind of walk with us and give us insight that you don't have to do. And I really liked that because I had a lot of opinions and ideas that might not be that were really kind of my perspective, how I would do it if I was leading, but not necessarily how they would do it as they were leading. So rather than it being, well, why don't I just step back in and be in the band and take over, which I didn't want to do because I'm the senior pastor now.
Yeah.
It seemed better to get an outside source. And then I did some research, found you, and now we've been what, 4 months in that, or 3 months?
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great when you guys approached me about that. I was like, man, that sounds like a fun challenge because I really do love the idea of shared leadership, and it's it's messy, and but I think it's very healthy when it's done right. And
I think
so,
messy is a good word. That's a
yeah,
good word. It can
yeah,
be messy.
yeah. But yeah, I think it's rewarding though when it works. And so I was definitely up for the challenge, and I've just loved working with your team. And
That's great.
so yeah, they're a good crew of people. And so so yeah, I think one of the things you touched on there is really critical, is that idea that, for the senior pastor, yeah, I mean, you led worship, and
Mhm.
but yet even stepping back into that advisory role adds a lot to your plate.
It
And it
does.
even puts in a weird relationship between you and the team too. It puts you guys in a different kind of spot. Right? Would you say
Right.
that?
Yeah, I would say that for sure, because then now they don't, I have an inordinate amount of power.
Mhm.
Not that it's like, oh, look at me, but
Mhm.
because of the position I'm in, my voice carries more weight. So if I were to go in there and say, okay, well, you have to do this and this and this and this, well, they're going to do that just out of respect and deference to me, when
Yeah.
that might not be what's necessarily best for them and their style. And I might be moving them out of a place that they're comfortable musically or whatever, and that's not fair to them.
Mhm.
I mean, if I were going to do that, then I would need to step in and do it. And I can't. I don't have time to
Yeah.
lead the praise band.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just had a conversation with a worship with a senior pastor who used to be the worship leader, and did both for many years, and now
Right.
has a person, and it's a struggle for him not to just step in and jump in. And so so yeah, having this coach piece in here, I can see where it can be helpful. So
Yeah.
as you're looking at your team, um and what are some of the either the issues or challenges or obstacles that 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 they needed to work through, or that they may have known that as well?
Well, I think the first there was going to be the idea of how do we manage this as a team,
Mhm.
because they sort of had been, but there had been a little bit of a, and I don't want to say a power struggle because it wasn't really that. It was really a philosophy struggle is probably better,
Mhm.
between the previous worship leader and the band, because he didn't really know what he was doing, because he wasn't, that wasn't his style. And so he would make choices that they didn't agree with, that didn't actually make any sense.
Mhm.
Like he would look at the song list of all the songs that the band knew, and he'd pick a song that they hadn't done in 10 years for a
Yeah.
Sunday morning, that they hadn't even, they hadn't practiced it, and then they'd have to practice it Sunday morning, do it. And just because he wasn't thinking through the dynamics of the band itself and
Mhm.
musicality and those things. And since he wasn't good at it, he had a tendency to not communicate well, to kind of make decisions in a vacuum and then spring
Mhm.
it on the band. The band had a different kind of concept of how things would go. And so that was the biggest part. The next issue would have been um, their musicality as a whole. They and this band has always done that. Even back when I was in the band, this band, we arranged our own stuff. We'd come up with our own arrangements to songs and those sorts of things. Um, but one of the issues that I think that they had, that I would say they still have, is that they had kind of started trending toward being more a choir with a background band, with a backing band, instead of a band. And so they, a lot of like very evening of cadence musically, and those sorts of things, and they still kind of tend toward that. So that's one of those work in progress kind of deals.
Yeah,
That
definitely. Yeah.
musicality.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been something I've kind of that choir with a backing band that resonates as I've been working with them there. So
Yeah.
it's good. Um, so yeah, so I mean, this is um, as you were looking at this program, what made you confident to say, hey, this this could work for our team. And, so what's some of your thought process there as a senior pastor?
Well, I can, so first you and I spoke, and you said you wanted to try it and you were willing to work with them a little bit to see if you had good chemistry as far as communication. And then, to be honest, the thing that gave me the confidence to say yes was that the band was like, yeah, we can totally work with John. We think this is going to be a good thing. We want to do this. And they were so sure themselves that I didn't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
I did the initial connection with you and got them connected to you. And then they were like, yes, we want to do it. So as soon
Yeah.
as they said that, we were all in.
Great. Yeah, they've taken really good ownership, and
They have.
it's been fun to be a part of that. So yeah, so as far as your medium-sized church, which I've worked in those, I know the budget, and
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, were there any issues or any processes you had to jump through, to get that money approved, or to make sure it was there?
Well, for this first year, the easy thing was that we had money budgeted for, we had set this year's budget before the previous worship pastor retired and before he had announced his retirement. So we were able to then go, okay, we're not going to spend as much money on these other things, so we can take and reallocate that music ministry budget to the coaching with the band.
Cool.
So yeah, that made it a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. Anything you've seen so far with the band that the team that your improvements, or just things, at least trajectory heading in the right direction?
Yeah, I'd say first of all, they their sound is more polished. I guess that's the best way to say it, is that they had been practicing pretty sporadically. There wasn't a lot of ownership from the vocalists there. It was really like, oh, we'll, put things together on Sunday morning and we'll be okay, kind of thing. Well, since they started the program and started really taking ownership of it, they've gone back to an every week practice schedule. The vocalists are there. Even so, like last Thursday, they couldn't practice in the sanctuary because we had something else. The band still met, had dinner together. So they had some fellowship and communication, went over some things from the coaching program together, some feedback that you had given them. I think that they had sent you a couple of recorded services. So they went through that together. And it's just there's a lot more intentionality from the whole group. So that's creating a lot more polished sound, because now when they practice, they're practicing that Sunday and the Sunday after, and then they're constantly doing that. So they're not just showing up cold on Sunday morning to they might have known what they were doing, but they hadn't worked on it together. Plus, they've all worked to have a commitment to practice on their own outside of Sunday morning or regular or fixed practice times, which are Thursday nights normally for them.
Nice.
So their sound's a lot better. I had a meeting with kind of the four, or I think it was five main sort of leader people. They're all the instrumentalists for the band, and they had some ideas and some concepts. Now, we didn't necessarily agree on all of those, but they were able to bring things up and say, could we look at this? Could we try this? Could we fix this? Those sorts of things. So the communication was better. And now I need to get better at communicating with them about other things. So that's on me.
Fantastic. Anything, as we kind of wrap up, anything you want to share with other worship leaders or other senior pastors who are looking at possibly investing in this for their worship leader?
The thing I would say is that we have a tendency toward kind of looking at the bottom line and deciding, we have a responsibility as a senior pastor. I have to be responsible in what I approve for spending money and making sure that it is in line with our vision and those things. Well, you really have to, as you just said, you have to see it as an investment.
Mm.
We're investing in our worship ministry. We're investing in these musicians and singers, that they would kind of hone their craft, that they would be able to be more, that they'd be able to more readily bring excellence, to bring their very best to God, because they've practiced, because they've learned, because they've been challenged, because they've been evaluated and gotten feedback that wasn't from me, which is super great that I don't have to give that feedback.
Yeah.
Not that I mind it, but I'm just not sure, because I've been in the band, that they would receive it particularly well, or that it wouldn't come across as, I don't know, picky uni or whatever.
Yeah.
So the investment is, it's really a discipleship investment.
Mm.
You're investing in a group of musicians to disciple them to be better musicians for the glory of God. So
That.
it's worth it in that sense, for sure. Especially if we had a worship leader, and I'll say this, if our previous worship leader had been open to engaging in coaching and those kinds of things, then we would have done this way sooner,
Mm.
just with him, because he lacked confidence in leading a praise band. So if he could have had someone walk with him to help him gain that confidence, he would have been a better worship leader as a whole, even though he was older and had never really been in a band before. I think that it really could have helped him in his leadership to have another point of accountability that wasn't his boss.
That's good.
So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that insight, because not having been a senior pastor myself, and being on the other side of things, of being the worship leader, and it's so helpful to have that perspective that you're bringing in here, Bill. So I just want to, man, thank you for your time. Thank you for investing in your team. And I'm really looking forward to the next, what the next 8-9 months have for us with your team. So
yeah, I think it's
thanks so
going to be
much.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, appreciate it.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you too.